Welcome to Standing in the Sunlight with Cynthia Rose. We are all on an ever-unfolding unique journey. Join Cynthia Rose as she begins her unique perspective to all that is meaningful. Topics and personalities that support your path, bringing inspiration and passion and heart-centered ways to live a more fulfilling life. A down-to-earth and uplifting sharing of what it means to be spiritual, creative, and living life to the fullest by standing in the sunlight. Born an intuitive medium, Cynthia Rose is also an ordained minister, singer, astrologer, educator, and writer. She has studied the intuitive and healing arts for over 40 years. Rise up and stand in your sunlight now with Cynthia Rose.
Good afternoon from Colorado. Good morning if you're somewhere where it's morning, or good evening, or if you're listening on the playback, welcome. So glad you're joining us today. I'm Cynthia Rose McCaw, host of the show. Just a couple of notes. If you want to connect with me, you can find me under Cynthia Rose Medium on Facebook. We do have a Cynthia Rose Medium group on Facebook that you can join in. And we also, I'm also reposting this on YouTube under Cynthia Rose Medium. You can listen back OMTimes. I have a feeling you might want to listen to this again. And you'll find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm all under Cynthia Rose Medium or Cynthia Rose MED. You'll find me there. Enough of that. I'm really excited about our guest today. We are going to be having Dr. Anita Sanchez, who is Aztec and a Mexican-American, is a transformational leadership consultant, speaker, coach, and author of the new international bestselling book, The 4 Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Times. She bridges Indigenous teachings with the latest science to inspire and equip women and men to enjoy meaningful, empowered lives and careers. And something else I just wanted to read for you. From the living room to the boardroom. Dr. Anita Sanchez is calling on all of humanity to pause, take a breath, and remember our unbreakable human bond in her new book, The 4 Sacred Gifts, which I've just mentioned. Anita invites all of us to open our hearts and receive 4 gifts from the world's elders that are more timely than ever. Anita, are you on the phone with me?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I just loved your book. I just finished it yesterday.
Well, that makes me smile, and it makes all those elders around the world smile, too, because this wisdom is so essential right now.
Isn't it? So important. And is that right? You were writing some of this during Standing Rock? Is that right?
Yes, I was. In fact, it made it really difficult to be able to go to Standing Rock, because all my friends, I was getting messages from them, and I was hitting deadlines. But I was hearing from all the elders. Yes, it was happening at the same time. And, of course, in the book, at the end, on Young People, Elders Rising, are several people who were young women who started the Standing Rock movement.
Do you know, you bring up something I was just thinking about. I think it was in September or something. I was doing a group gallery in mediumship, and I found myself telling a younger lady, her father had come through, and he was talking about a special occasion being missed, which apparently was a yearly ceremony, and he was passing the torch to her, saying it's time for you to be an elder. And she couldn't have been, she had to have been in her 30s. She was not older. And I started wondering about that. And you've brought that up in your book, that an elder is not necessarily older.
No, an elder can be any age. You can imagine no one told the Dalai Lama when he was a child that he couldn't be an elder. And that is true for the wisdom that's coming in. It happens at all ages. It's about really the traditional, the original knowledge coming through. And it does come through young people as well as people in their 80s and 90s.
I love that you're empowering that, because for a long time there has been many restrictions on giving voice to true knowledge. shall we say.
Yes, well, there is in many in the indigenous cultures where it is the community who ultimately calls the person an elder. So an elder usually never calls themselves, rarely calls themselves an elder. It's the community, but that community is calling that for young people as well as in age older people. So yes, I think we have to. This wisdom is coming through in all avenues, not only in two-leggeds, but we also know nature is giving us a lot of information now and wisdom about how it wants to be taken care of.
Yes, yes. Something that comes up for me, and I wonder what I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but something just came up for me intuitively. Now, I didn't grow up, like, say, out in the wild per se. I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and so my weekends were spent, my favorite place was Stanley Park with the trees. And so it was a very special place for me. But there's something I wonder what might be said about this. There used to be a zoo there, and I used to go off into my father would take me off the beaten path where they had animals that weren't part of the general zoo, and I would visit deer there, and they cared for them. And, do you know, it's a kind of a mixed feeling about having them in a place like that. And at the same time, I learned so much. I had an otter I used to visit, and I gained a lot of understanding to respect life in the middle of a city. And
so,
I wonder what you think of that.
Well, I think that we're all doing the best we can, with the knowledge and tools we have, and one of them was that there is an appreciation of different animals, different species. And then as time has gone, you've seen those zoos have changed where they're far more expansive, and they're realizing some of the animals really need to go back to the wild and not be kept there. So I do ultimately think we're all striving to be in right relationship, not only with ourselves and each other, human beings, but with also our other relatives, the animals. And so what I'm delighted in what you said is it immediately began giving respect and a connection, to the otters, to the deer, to the other animals. So that's really my feeling. And I do see a whole movement of opening up what are zoos, but also knowing that some of the reserves are really important because the species would be gone. We really are bringing back that which we've destroyed before it's too late.
Yeah, it's really a mixed feeling, isn't it? Because, maybe what was appropriate, years ago is not appropriate now. And yet I take what I learned out of it to have great respect for life and all forms of life and the wisdom. My father would have me talk to the trees.
No, yeah.
And I also grew up in Vancouver. I grew up really respecting the Native traditions. It was a big part of our schooling. So I don't know what it's like in the U.S., but there's great respect for the traditions and all the wisdom
of Indigenous people, yes. Well, I think in Canada, you are doing much better than we're doing in the U.S. right now. I know that you have actually, I don't know if you call it legislation, but that in the schools, starting very early in elementary schools, there will be taught the First Nation history. That's not the case here. So it's really very scattered of what you get and how much. And I remember as a child going home and saying to my mom, really upset, like, at school they're telling me, George Washington is the father of my country, but, when I'm with the Osage and my uncle, that's not what they tell us, They talk about the indigenous elders. And I remember her saying, and this is where I think we have to have compassion and also honor the different wisdom at the different times. She said, Anita, if you want to get A's when you're out there, then you answer the way they want you to answer. But you can always come home and we'll talk about the truth. And that's how she would, and I sort of went away with my, I think I was 7 or 8 at the time, kind of like, oh, okay. And I have a Ph.D., so I get that. I get that even in my Ph.D., I wasn't able to put all the wisdom keepers that I wanted to because, again, it was defining science in a very narrow way rather than including the first scientists, which are indigenous people all over the world were the first scientists who knew how to connect with the trees, to listen to the earth, so and to be incredible observers.
Yes, yeah, your mom was a very smart woman.
She was, with a seventh grade education, by the way. So she had ways to have us learn, even though we were in the inner city. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood, but I would a couple of times a year go to the Osage Reservation to learn from elders, and then, of course, go to the other side of town to be with my Mexican-American family. So it was I wouldn't trade any of it, because I got to really become close to people of different backgrounds, different races from the get-go.
That is a gift. And one of the things, that touched me about this book too is then when you talked about the power of hope, and I know I'm jumping around, but that's just what comes up for me. It's just important, so important, and almost in some ways easily disregarded nowadays, and so important.
It's absolutely important, and I'm glad, Carolyn Rose and Cynthia Rose, that you are moving with what feels right, because I think that's your listeners, and I'm sensing that too. But what I am, as I'm traveling around talking about the book, two things come up, and of the gifts more often than not, and the power of hope in action, that gift, because people are feeling hopeless. They are allowing doubt to take over what inside, sacredly, they know what is true is that we can be in harmony with each other. We can be in right relationship. One doesn't not have to power over someone else or bully or any of the other things. That this whole separation is an illusion, that who we really are meant to be is in love and caring and connection with ourselves and other people and other beings on the earth.
And that's so important. It's something I feel so strongly about, is that we spend so much time talking about our differences and it's this tribal mentality instead of realizing that we are one. So that's one reason I just loved this book. So important that leaders like yourself speak up about this.
Yes. And I want to also say that there is, even in the discussion now, on one hand, the tribal mentality, which is one of separation, that illusion. But there also is known with indigenous people a whole different sense of what is tribe, what is nation. Not about separating, but rather of the importance of staying connected to the original wisdom, the original traditions. Not just to hold on to them for yourself, but to actually keep them and put them out there for the whole world, which was the impetus of writing this book, to share these four gifts for all humankind. So that gift of the power of hope and action, this is a source of energy for all of us. And so we need to just keep it alive. And part of that is by imagining what could be, dreaming. We need to have that, our heart pull us toward what we know is healthy and good for all of us.
Yeah, and I love that you said hope is an energy source. I love that, because we often think, or I don't know, I can remember hope being almost having like maybe Christian connotations, and at least I can remember that it had that connotation, and that limits it.
Very much so. It does limit it. It's so funny because I grew up Catholic as well as practicing my earth-based wisdom. And I remember, in terms of learning about hope, every day, and part of doing ceremony was looking at the morning star, which of course is a planet Venus. So tell yourself, today is a new day. Today is another day to be alive, to be in hope, to be in purposeful action. So, which is very, very different than some of the hope that we hear about in my Christian teaching. But the other thing is that right now some people are writing about hope and saying, oh, it's a waste of time, it's just causing stagnation. And they're not talking about the hope in which I was taught by the elders. This really is an energy source, and no one can take it away. We can choose to give it away, but it is always there. We can draw on it.
Oh, I love that. That just resonates deeply in my heart with what you're saying. And it's, well, something my mother used to say was keep hope.
Yeah.
She would always say, keep hope. And I can't say, when she passed, I can't say I understood that keep hope, but she came through to me through somebody else when I was younger. And she came through and she said exactly that through them. She said, keep hope. And I've never forgotten that. And it's funny, when I started to read this book, I could feel her around me saying, oh, I like this book. I like this book. And then when I read all about hope, she was there so strongly with me. I just felt her so strong.
See,
To me, that's just the spirit world saying yes.
Yes, you just honored me and the elders, because that's true. The spirit world and the physical world, these are all connected. These are not separate. Dream world and waking world, these are not. This is an illusion that they're separate. Just as Einstein says, time, past, present, and future, these are not disconnected. And so the fact that you could feel the presence of your mother when you read about hope, to me, there it is. There's the other energy source that is part of your blood memory that's coming through for today, for right now. It's needed. So I'm just, thank you. That is quite a compliment.
Yeah. It just is, I don't know, the time right now, even this fall, the way things are, the intensity of what's going on seems even more important for those of us trying to hold that energy and contain that. It seems more and more important. So I think your book is perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Well, thank you. I do agree, and that's what I'm finding in talking with people and using these in my own life. So for 23 years, I've been using these gifts, and what I found is every single one of them matter. They're actually intimately interconnected. But just even focusing on any one throughout the day, what the elders said from the 27 elders from around the world who put together this eagle hoop with 100 eagle feathers falling down from it. And on that weekend, they prayed, they sang, they chanted, they did different ceremonies, and Spirit told them, put these 4 gifts inside the hoop for all humankind so that they can remember that to be a whole human being is to live knowing you are connected to yourself, other people, the earth and spirit, and that we can only have harmony and balance if we remember this relationship, this connection to ourselves, other people, earth and spirit.
I can feel everything just flowing beautifully, because I was just thinking about Eagle Hoop when you said that. Oh, and now I'm getting that we're cued for a break. So grab a glass of water, stretch your legs, and we'll be back with Dr. Anita Sanchez.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hi, this is recording artist and composer Yuval Ran, inviting you to a voyage through the chakras, a new double album of guided meditations to transform your life, a sublime musical medicine for nourishing inner peace and reaching to your higher virtues. Get it now at metamindfulnessmusic.com, METTA mindfulnessmusic.com.
Some knowledge belongs to us and us alone. The way our girlfriends walk, talk, touch their hair. Details that only a sister can know about her girls. But what about our other girls? The ones we carry with us every day. Our bond with our sister girls gives life. But knowing your breasts can save it. Go to knowyourgirls.org for the facts you need on breast health. Brought to you by Susie G. Coleman and the Ad Council.
Okay, we're back with Dr. Anita Sanchez talking about her fabulous book, The Four Sacred Gifts. I wanted to bring up, it really moved me, you sharing your story about what happened to your father and your honesty about the path of forgiveness that you were on.
Yes, I'd be glad to share that. That is, in addition to hope, that is the other thing as I'm talking to people is they're so drawn. They want to forgive the unforgivable. And so the story you're talking about is at age 13, my father was murdered. It was in the 60s, and he was mistaken for where earlier that day in a bar, a neighborhood bar, a black man and a white man were having a fight. And after work, when he sat there having a beer, he sat in the place where the black man was, and the white man returned and fired 3 bullets through him, and he died on the spot. And it was, of course, that's horrific. My mom was there left with 6 kids, 9 to 18. I was 13 at the time. And, it was just really very, very hard. And when the police came to inform us of what happened, we were just sort of in shock that this could actually occur. But what was more difficult, Cynthia Rose, was the next week after the funeral, a white man, a young white boy who's probably around my age of 13, came to the door, and she identified herself as the wife and son of the man who murdered my father. And I was standing there beside my mom, and she began saying things like, well, my husband's a good man. He would never have done this. He would never have killed your husband if he knew he was Mexican and Native American. He thought he was black. And you know how black people are. And she started saying things. And my mom is very, very Catholic and very, very much indigenous. And I remember her first time ever I saw her shaking, and then she said, just stop. Stop. You don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know the hatred you're teaching your son, but I want you to know that I'm going to try really hard to pray for your soul, but you get off my porch. And that night she gathered all of us kids and said, which I'll never forget, she said, I want you to understand that a white man murdered your father, not the white race. And then she opened the newspaper and showed my father lying there on the bar with blood. And she said, now this is racism, and we have to change this, where in this city, no one who was white, if something violent happened, they would never show pictures. But when a Mexican or a black or an Asian or Native American, they show this, and that needs to change. And I know that part of that story is why I, for the last 40-plus years, have all over the world taught people how to care for each other in corporations and community groups, diversity, inclusion, and all of that work. But it's really, I know this is a little bit longer story, but I think this will be very helpful for your readers to understand this is possible to forgive the unforgivable. Because as an adult, I began teaching in corporations, listening to white men and women talk about how their parents taught them that they were better than people of color. But they weren't doing that. They were forging relationships, and they were changing policies and, doing all sorts of things. And that little girl got healed, that 13-year-old Anita, because the adult Anita understood that what she couldn't then, because she thought there was no way that young boy would go on any other path but a path of hatred. But instead, what I realized on that summer day, I not only lost my father, but that poor boy lost his father too. And I then chose so actively back then in the 80s that this was what I delight in. And so forgiving the unforgivable, forgiving his father for killing my father, forgiving myself for taking away that young boy's space. You know, that forgiveness doesn't mean you forget what happened. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you betrayed your group of people. What it means is that you love yourself enough to free yourself from holding on to that energy, the hope that something was going to happen differently than it did, and the pain. So I really want the listeners to know that it is possible. I now believe there is absolutely nothing that is unforgivable. Absolutely nothing. Doesn't mean it's painful. Doesn't mean we don't seek justice and all those things. But it means that we can choose to use our energy to create what we want rather than hanging on to past hurts and mistreatments.
And so important right now. There's so many. There's people out there that say, "Oh, well, I can't forgive," and there's. It's like we've got to uncover that fear that if we forgive, somehow something will be forgotten or repeated, or there's all this peripheral about it. And yet, if we don't bring forgiveness, then as a group in humanity, then we lose hope. I mean, they go hand in hand, right?
Yes, they do go hand in hand. I think that's why those two keep getting brought up at the same time by people, because this forgiveness is really a path to freedom. And I look at my elders from all over the world, indigenous elders, and they all say the same things. These are people who, many of whom, were victims of genocide. Whole groups of people were meant to be wiped out. Sacred lands taken away, all sorts of things. And these are the very elders who say we must forgive the unforgivable. And who better to teach forgiveness than those who have been hurt so badly? Now, again, that doesn't mean we don't try to change systems, we don't forge new relationships, and that's exciting, because in the past, those who we called each other enemies now are allies, accomplices in trying to create a better world. At the same time, we're seeing the real hurts and ugliness and the bullying and things arising too in the separation. But that, to me, is only a stronger message of why that gift, the power to forgive the unforgivable, is so important, so that we can be free to be present to what is and deal with what is here and now to make it better for all of us in all our relationships.
I agree, and it's time to move away from this learned helplessness that has been practiced and take back each of our, each of our power that is connected within the power of one, and to make a change. It's so important right now.
It's absolutely important, and I just so love that, there's a lot of folks that do talk about oneness and a relationship, and I'm one of those people who does that. And we have gifts. We know how to do it. And two of those we've already spoken about. The gift of hope in action. Put that into practice. The gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. Put that in practice, along with the other two gifts. And when we do this, we will feel, when we're not in right relationship, what do I want to say? What's coming through is I want to say, I do my best every day, and I don't always succeed, but I'm human, and I forgive myself and try again, which is we get to choose every day from a powerful place of being good medicine or bad medicine. Good medicine is anyone or anything that helps put in alignment our spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical self. When we do that, we're good medicine. So we get to choose we're either that or we're not. And I'll tell you, when I'm not, I sure feel it right away, that schism. And then I know what gifts, I know what tools to pick up to move forward. And so I'm just so grateful for the elders from around the world who continue these practices, continue showing us, in spite of great hardship, that we are meant to be whole human beings, creating harmony and balance with other human beings and other beings on this earth and spirit itself.
Yeah, that's very well said. There's something you mentioned something about the dream state, and it made me think of something. My sister used to work for an Indian band in British Columbia. She was there for many years, and I remember my father going up to visit her once, and he didn't often go away, and he came back. He was all happy, and I said, "How was it?" And he said, "What a wonderful lady." He said, she had this entire baseball team back at her house for popcorn.
I love it. I would be there. I love it.
And I was like, okay. So anyway, when she passed away, they had a celebration of life for her, and half a dozen or a dozen, I don't remember, from an Indian band all drove up to represent their group coming to honor her life. I didn't know any of them, but they said, we come and we stand in solidarity for her and who she was and what she did, which really, really touched my soul, because I thought, wow, that just made me feel so good that her life was honored in that way. But that just came through. But what I was thinking about is how she would talk, like they would have these meetings, and their group meetings, band meetings, and she said that the chief would sit there, and you would think he was asleep, and then right when something was important or they're trying to understand something, you were sure he was asleep, he would speak some wisdom as if he'd been listening the whole time.
That sounds like the circles I've been part of. So your sister sounds like really a wonderful person, and of course the band would come to celebrate her, because that's part of the gift of unity, that power to be in solidarity, not only in this world, but on the other side, to know that her spirit, her energy is still a source of strength, a source of wisdom. So, I love that. And I'm laughing because the elders, they always surprise me. You never know if they're going to talk for hours, but you do know that when it looks like they're asleep, they're not. They're just really conscious, immediately will pop up and say something that just makes you sit right up and go, oh my gosh, and just goes right to the heart.
Yeah, and she was, lucky to be invited to, some of the private ceremonies and all that. I was just in awe hearing about it. And that was just, I always wanted to go up and be part of it, but she said it was invitation only or something like that. But I thought, well, maybe sometime. But of course, life goes on and you have the responsibilities. But I never forgot her saying that. And the idea that some of that wisdom comes to us in the dream state, the in-between state, I really believe in that. That's good medicine, right?
That is absolutely good medicine. And every summer, part of my volunteer commitment is my husband and I take a group for the Pachamama Alliance into the Amazon rainforest. And we actually live with two dream cultures, the Sapra people and the Ashwar, who do not, every morning they wake up at 3:30 or 4 and they share their dreams from the youngest to the oldest. And based on their dreams, that's what they'll do that day. And it is so powerful to see living where you're not separating that which you know and can come through in dream state. So I'm with you. I just believe that one of the big things about a gift, using any of these gifts, is to practice gratitude. Practice dreaming, because if you can in the waking state come up with the gratitude before you go to sleep, like just allow that to come through in my dreams, all that which I am to be, sensing the abundance, knowing what is mine to be and to do, and it's just powerful way to live. Yes, I could see when we meet each other in person sometime, we'll have to sit quiet and allow the dream state to happen, and it can happen in waking time and as well as in sleep time.
I love that. I love that. Yes. And, I used to hear that some of the Tibetan monks would wake up and talk about their dream state. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I have heard from monks that is the case, because, in fact, not only what happened, but actually you can communicate with others both right near you as well as around the world. And that's indeed what I've experienced more and more as I've become more and more open to what is actually happening in dream state. And we're, of course, doing much more science around that to see what is occurring. There's so much that's outside of our senses, and I don't need to tell you because I know you're a leader in all of this. There's so much beyond our senses that is real and that is here, that is helping us, is part of us, and that we've just forgotten. And we are living in a time where we get to remember and reconnect to all of that.
Yeah, yes. And people often don't realize, I know that we are in communication all the time, that we think, oh, we pick up the phone, we talk to somebody. The minute we think of someone, we're connecting to them. I really believe that's true. And I've had the experience where I thought of someone I hadn't talked to in years and years and years. And I said, it's okay, I'll talk to you, I forgive you. And then got up that day and 2 hours later ran into them.
There you go.
So,
see, and we call that, that was just an accident. That's the language we use. But the reality is we pay attention. We sure have a lot of those accidents are what I call real-time miracles that are actually part of life. But we've forgotten to really see them. And that's where, again, the Indigenous Wisdom, I think, is so powerful because it asks us to be awake so that we can be awake to everything, to all of that. And so what's happening on that spiritual plane, what's happening on that energetic level, that we can actually be sending each other messages of care, of wanting to forgive, all of that. So both the good stuff gets passed, but also the negative. And that's why we get to choose to be good medicine so that we bring the alignment and the care and love that we all are worthy of.
And it's there, yes, I'm a medium, but it's there for all of us. I'm not special. It's there for all of us. And, I had in meditation, I kept getting the symbol of, we might talk about that when we come back, symbols and connections, because I can hear we're being cued for our last break, having a wonderful conversation with Dr. Anita Sanchez. You've got to get her book, The Four Sacred Gifts. We'll be back after a short break.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Tune in to The Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World with me, host Robin Fritz, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern. I'll cover personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life regression, shamanic insights, energy healing, soul choice, and more, all to help you tap your own intuitive and healing skills. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Hi, this is New Age Grammy winner Paul Avgerinos. Thanks for listening to OMTimes Radio, and please support my peaceful healing music with a purchase at iTunes, Amazon, or wherever you shop for fine music. Just put my name into the search engine, Paul Avgerinos. A, V like Victor, G like George, E-R-I-N-O-S. You can also visit me at roundskymusic.com. Thanks for listening, and I'm wishing you the brightest of blessings.
GTG, BRB, OMW, be there in a few. You may think that these kinds of texts are fine because of their length, and you can easily send them at a stoplight. But no, answering one text can take your attention away from the road for 5 seconds. And traveling at 55 miles an hour, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Make good decisions, don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Okay, we're back. Just thinking about how powerful every action that we do, it has reverberations, and we don't realize it sometimes. That, you talked about how your mother stood on that porch, how powerful that is. And I had a memory just come up for me that my father may not have realized how powerful that was, because it's not just what our parents say, it's those actions that speak so loud. I can recall, for a time my father worked down near the shore, and he was driving a young Native man to work. He would frequently help others, and he was picking him up. And I think he had had some trouble with alcohol and some problems. So the police at the time decided to harass my father for driving him. So they would pull him over and search his car and make him late for work. And they were not kind to this man. And my dad said, "Look, give the guy a break. He's trying to turn his life around, trying to make it better." And then I think there was some morning he was picking me up or something, and he ended up saying this had happened to him and how much it bothered him that this had happened. But he was a man of principle. He wasn't going to you're not going to tell me who to put in my car or not to help. And he probably didn't even realize it. But the fact that he would stand up for certain people for the principle of being kind, of helping another, not giving up on people. And he didn't realize, but that action at some level taught me not to give up, not to judge people by just what's happened to them in their past,
Yeah.
I don't know what that...
No, he sounds like a wonderful man.
But he was also teaching me in that action that we're not separate.
Yes. I was just thinking he's so good medicine, because he's not the illusion of separate. That's the other man, the policeman who was harassing for, driving him and all of that stuff, and other people. That, it's so easy to get caught in the separateness. When I was very young, I also experienced years of abuse, and after having that abuse, and then the murder of my father, the racism, the sexism, you could just go on and on with all of those. I started thinking my identity was the hurts and pains. And so when you're in hurts and pains, that's what you do to other people. And I created this wall of separation. So it's you, othering everybody else. There's me and everybody else. But what happened through having people who still stepped forward and saw good things in me, from doing some other practices of hope and ceremony and gratitude, is that I began to put down that armor and to begin to realize, oh my gosh, I was trying to keep out the hurts. I didn't want any more hurt, but I was keeping out the good stuff too, and I was really hurting and literally killing myself. But once that started going down and reconnecting, as your father knew, he wasn't going to go for this separateness, whether it was due to a color of a person's skin or their gender or their age or orientation, whatever it is. He was principled because he understood that we are in connection, and that he passed that on to you is so powerful. That's what I felt like it was happening with my Indigenous grandmother and my mom, who could have fallen so easily to be able to just point out all the hurts and mistreatments, but they just kept saying no. We can look for this wisdom, this sacredness, this connection inside ourselves, in nature, and in an Indigenous wisdom keepers. And I'm so grateful for that, as you are grateful to your father, that in that positive action, he was teaching far more than words could do.
Yeah, Anita, I think you're a true light worker, because I think that what's so important is if we have grown through something horrific and moved to the place where if you can stand there and say, look, I've gotten to a place where I see the truth, and let me help others. That's a true light worker to me. That's what we need.
Well, I think that's truly
I really
who
want
we
to honor that.
naturally are. Well, thank you. I do totally receive that. And I believe that we have just forgotten that, like there aren't bad people. There are people who've forgotten it. And we got to make sure that, not allow them to keep hurting people, so we have to make sure we put structures up. But one of the best antidotes to bad medicine is to be good medicine, is to do those things to help bring in alignment, who we truly are spiritually, the best of us mentally, emotionally, and physically, and our bodies don't lie. We can feel. I know when I'm not being right, like something tightens up in my body, like, ooh. Now, why didn't I stop and smile, a big smile at that homeless man who was really disheveled? Why didn't I do that? Well, now you get to walk back 5 steps and do that. Acknowledge and honor people. Treat everyone with dignity. And when we do that, we get filled up too with more of that energy source to be able to be that light in the world. So I do believe we all have the capacity. It's just sometimes we forget. And so that's why I really appreciate you and these listeners, because these 4 gifts really will. There are many gifts. Use them all. So I'm not saying this is the only. These contribute to, but if you use these 4 gifts, what I have found in my life, and when I've shared them with leaders inside of corporations or in communities, they also say, oh my gosh, it's so simple, and yet it's about constantly practicing it. And then we get to be in love with ourselves and each other, to sense what really freedom means. Freedom that means not just about me, but freedom for we to live a life and be part of the evolution, the positive evolution that can occur, rather than destruction of ourselves and other species or all the other myriad things that are happening.
Yes, I like what you said about practicing every day, because to me, I think I was a very selfish little girl. And my mom started working on me very young, saying you need to work on that. You got to give the bigger piece of cake. If it's chocolate cake and it's your birthday, you still give someone the bigger cake. And I didn't want to. and bless her for that. But I find forgiveness, okay, I've come through things in my life, whether it's something that's happened to me or something that I've done. Forgiveness is a daily occurrence. Forgiveness is part of our daily diet, to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, because our little selves just can get caught in things that are not important. And I love that you said it was daily, because it's so important I remind myself, okay, I wish I'd been a little bit more connected today, or there's always kind of an assessment of, I would say not assessment, awareness. Like I do my best every day, and some days I do better than others.
Yes, that's called being a human being. But you know what I love about it, and I know you must with your practice, is that when I fall short, I don't stay stuck there. I move back out of that much faster than I used to. Like just resentment and why did and how come, and now it's like, it's almost like scratching on a chalkboard. It's not in alignment. It's not who I am. It's not what I want. It's not what I want to do to somebody else just because it was done to me, or that I did it to somebody else. So what's wonderful is with the practice, you move out of it very quickly to be back in right relationship.
Yes, I like that, in right relationship. Do you know, I was moved by some of the sharing that you talked about with many of the elders, but Don Coyhus, has he a major effect on you?
Oh, Don Coyhus. You must have been picking that up, because I was going, I've got to name you. Well, one of the things when you meet with elders, at least when I was growing up, they'd say a couple of things, always in starting everything. They'd say, first, you must start with who came before. Otherwise, you'll think this came out of some void. Well, who came before about starting all this talking is one of the visionaries, the elder Don Coyhus, who's a Mohican elder, and he's the keeper of the eagle hoop, with a hoop with 100 eagle feathers that have these gifts in it. And he's moved them all over the Americas with tens of thousands of people putting their prayers and healing, and soon it's going to actually, for the first time, the eagle's going to fly again. It's going to be taken to New Delhi next February for the World Dignity Forum, where it's going to be able to share its gifts and receive the gifts from elders from different traditions around the world. So yeah, Don Koyas is a beautiful elder who had this vision, who the call went out to elders all over the world that came together way back then in 94, saying things are going to get tougher, more challenging, and spirit from these different ceremonies, from these different traditions, are all saying the same thing. Use these 4 gifts: the power of hope, the power of healing, the power to forgive the unforgivable, and the power of unity. Do this, and we can remember how to be in right relationship with people, earth, and spirit. And he just opens my heart. It just warms it, and so many people are grateful. And not always easy, as you said, just like the little girl with the big piece of cake. You want me to give that away? He's given his life, and traveling all over, in difficult conditions, because driving from every place to get this hoop, to allow that good medicine to be present. So, and that's true of elders who are so selfless. This is, not about getting, whatever material things. It's about living your soul's purpose and having the joy of doing that.
And it's so simple, and we make it complicated.
Yeah.
We do.
I know. We certainly do. I certainly do. And so I'm glad you could giggle about it, and I can too, because we have to be compassionate and empathy. We'll be able to give more as we give more to ourselves, and then move forward. And so that is our condition. And I'm so pleased with how many people are waking up and looking to honor the spiritual side of things, the physical, the psychological and emotional, and know that there's so much abundance here to support us, that we're really not alone. That is such an illusion. That, no, we are part of this whole. The universe is a we, and me is part of we. And I only suffer when I go into that downward cycle of it's I all the time. It's not. That's not it. The joy comes from in service. The joy comes from being in right relationship, being good medicine.
Yes, and following your soul purpose. There's no better life. I feel, I wasn't one who ever thought about traveling for my work. I'm a homebody, but I'm more than happy to travel in the work that I do, because it feels like I'm in my soul purpose. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. And if someone would have told me, I think someone did tell me, and I probably said no, but for me to travel and do the work that I do just was not something I would think, oh no, I wouldn't do anything like that, because I'm a homebody. I like to do something and come home. And it feels so right. I feel more like I live a life with purpose and being led. And the spirit world has really confirmed for me that in many ways that we will, whatever it is we get here, great. We get to keep it. And when we cross to the other side in that more awareness of oneness, then we become aware of how it is that we affected others and what we did. And it's not a punishment. That's not it's just an awareness of, I got this. I understood this and I got that. And it makes me, I'm so passionate about helping and making a difference that I have to stop and chuckle at myself sometimes and say, you're doing the best you can. But that drive to make a difference, that can get the best of you too.
Well, yeah, we still have to care for ourselves. And that's where, again, the compassion, the healing, using the gift of healing on ourselves, forgiveness on ourselves, unity, knowing that there's others to support. So, often asking, is this mine to do or is this someone else's? And really paying attention to how we be. So it's caring for ourselves, It's like, I just, sometimes I forget and I'm like, no, Anita, you go for that walk outside, because it's not only good for your spirit, but it's this body I have to treasure too. That's the vessel that I'm using to be here, to be of service. And so I've got to walk it, because
Yes.
otherwise, that's unhealthy. So it's
Yes.
all of that we get to do.
Yes. Okay, I see we only have a couple of minutes left. Would you like to share websites or information with people, how they get the book, about your website?
Yes, thank you. Yes, if they go to www.forsacredgifts.com. That's for F-O-U-R, forsacredgifts.com. And when you go to that site, you'll see there's different buttons you can click where you can buy the book in hardback, ebook, audio. There is also a free song that comes with the book. You don't even have to purchase the book. You get the free song. You'll see the click there. It's called In Right Relations. I sing in it, I chant, but there's also indigenous and non-indigenous singers. It's beautiful. It's the concept. And you'll also see there, if you're interested beyond the book, there's an online class that Daily Om is now just put online, and you can go and take that class. And what I love about them is that you pay what you can pay. There is no set price. So if you can pay the $40, that's great. If all you can afford is $5, that's great. So go to forsacredgifts.com. And thank you so much. This has been a wonderful interview. I appreciate you allowing me to share the elders' wisdom.
Oh, it was so lovely to have you on it. Thank you for writing the book and continuing the work. Okay. That's it for today. See you next week. We're talking about time. Happy Halloween next week. Okay. Thank you, Anita.
Yes, thank you.